Hi guys, welcome back to Young and Unscripted. We're back today with another episode. I think I might start doing a lesson I've learned this week at the start of my videos. My lesson that I have learned this week, what would it be? I think I've learned detachment in a way this week in terms of detaching from outcomes and detaching from people's opinions of you and kind of remaining calm and letting go of things. Because I think sometimes you can be like going along your life really peacefully and being like, oh, everything's great. And then something comes up and it can trigger you a bit. And I think I'm learning to just like detach in those moments and also to detach from people's opinions and perspectives on you and what you're doing. I think that's really powerful. It's such a powerful state to be in. I think when you reach a state where you are more comfortable with yourself and more confident in where you're going and who you are, you can still then have those kind of testing moments where you're like, oh my gosh, that little thing did trigger me, or like, I actually am thinking, what is that person thinking of me? And then, like, in those moments, sitting back and being like, okay, let me actually detach from all of this, detach from the outcomes, and literally just keep focused on what I'm doing and where I'm going. So that was my lesson this week. And it's something that I'm constantly working on, but I think it's a good lesson to learn. This is an interesting one. I downplay my dreams to avoid judgment. When people at work ask about my goals, I give a watered down version. I say things like, oh, I just do a bit of acting on the side instead of owning how serious it is. Okay. Yeah, I've definitely been there. I think when I first wanted to do acting, that was a place I was in a lot where I was like, yeah, I might want to do a bit of acting. And now it's something that I try to say with confidence. I think there is a thing, though, that people don't need to know everything that's going on in your life and you don't need to like update them on everything. And sometimes it is good to just like kind of move forward in silence. And like you don't need to necessarily tell people your plans. But I also think there is a power in owning what you want to do. Like this year, actually, I made a real big switch of saying, I'm doing acting, I'm going to be an actress, and saying things more positively because I noticed like there was a shift. Before I would say, yeah, I do acting, but it's a really hard industry. It's super competitive, and it's hard, but like there'd be just a list of like things. And I say, yeah, I'm an actor and I really hope to book something this year, or it's just in a more positive way. Again, I don't need to tell people my plans, but I was just phrasing it in a way where I was like, yeah, I'm confident in myself. I don't need to like over explain anything. I think just saying it like that, I realized that people were like, okay, yeah, that sounds great. Like it's gonna happen. And it kind of started a more positive conversation. I was like, oh, what are your like goals and stuff like that? Whereas before I would kind of then feel like, oh yeah, it is hard. And like, then I would start like questioning things more. But when I came with that confidence, the energy was just then higher. And really there's nothing to be scared of. I think we get scared of saying, I'm gonna do this or I want to do this and it like not happening and then like being embarrassed. But really, I think you've got nothing to lose by saying, yeah, this is my goal, this is my ambition. Being confident in it is such a powerful state to be in. So I think it really helps by just the little things by saying that. It's like how we talk to ourselves is so important. Like the way we talk about ourselves and like what we're gonna do and not talking down on ourselves. Like just how that's so important. I also believe that when we're in public, we should also do the same. We should, yeah, like just talk with just a quiet confidence. Just stop fearing that it's not going to happen because I think that's when we get into the thing of self doubt and like usually nothing that good comes from it. I think it can then like just start a negative conversation or like then when I would say, "Oh yeah, it's really hard and competitive," da, 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 people were like, "Yeah," and like I can imagine. And I was like, suddenly I'm feeling like pitied when it was never meant to be like that. So yeah, I completely resonate where you're coming from, but just honestly, just start doing it, even if it feels weird at first. I think we also have a thing in society where we don't want to be arrogant, and that's certainly not anything that I would ever want to come across as too, as like most of us wouldn't. But there's like ways you can say things and like I think we overthink it as well. The person's really not going to think that deeply into it. They're not going to leave the conversation and think, oh my gosh, she wants to do that. Like they're probably never going to think about it again. It's more just like helping ourselves feel more positive about what we want to do. I think it's more about how it makes us feel and how like the language we're using surrounding it. When that becomes more positive, I feel like then more positive things are likely to happen. Just start doing it, and then I think naturally it will become a habit and you'll start just talking about it in that way rather than like downplaying it. Okay, this is interesting. I want to be more disciplined, but I rely on motivation. I have goals, working out, waking up earlier, eating better, but I only follow through when I feel like it. And most days I don't. Yeah, I think motivation and discipline are two different things. And if we're only disciplined when we're motivated, then it wouldn't really be discipline because I feel like discipline is kind of doing things even when we don't feel motivated. How to build that? I would say just start small and start with one thing because a lot of the time, what motivation will do, it will make us think, oh my gosh, I want to do everything at once. Like, we want to become the best person in the world. We're like, I'm going to do like everything, all of my goals. I'm going to start becoming my dream person today, but that's a lot. And that's why it usually only lasts like a couple of days. Whereas I think if we start with like one thing, like look at your vision board or whatever the vision is for this year that you have ahead or this month, and think, what is one thing that is my top priority that I really want to focus on? And let's start there. So, for instance, if that for you was going to the gym, okay, I'm going to make sure I go to the gym a couple of times a week. Again, we don't have to set the goals rocket high because I think there are things that we can build up. As humans, we think, okay, we do it, and then like, oh, actually, that was a bit too much, so now I'm not going to do it at all. Whereas if you start with one goal that's like, you know, achievable, more realistic, you can fit it into your schedule, and then you'll prove to yourself, you'll be like, okay, I'm actually doing that. And once it gets over a certain amount of time, it does become a habit. And then once it's a habit, it's usually something that stays. For instance, it wasn't a habit that I already had, so I had to build that. And like now I've been going for a while. When I haven't been for a week, I'm like, oh my gosh, it feels weird. Like I want to get back to the gym. And that feeling shows that it's become a habit. For me, in my experience anyway, once I like get more disciplined with one thing, and like I do build that habit, other things do start to become more disciplined just because you become more like focused and you're like, oh my gosh, I feel really good in that. And now I want to like better myself even more. Just don't beat yourself up if it's not all going great. You know, we all have bad weeks, but then you just got to keep going because people say, you know, like we start and then if it doesn't go well, we just go, oh, I'm not going to do it. But like just because you have that off week, okay, just start again the next day. Like you can still carry on even if things aren't going as well as you think. And I think you've also got to sit with the fact that it's not going to feel amazing all the time. You're not always going to get that dopamine hit. That usually starts when you get that random burst of motivation. Like when you actually go and do something, even on a day when you're like, okay, I was really tired, like I'm just feeling lazy, I don't want to do anything, and you do a thing, it can be so small, but like say you did one thing for your career or whatever it is that you wanted to do, you actually feel so much better doing it. And I think once you've like kind of felt that, you're like, okay, I know for future reference that I also want to push myself to do it. Not if you really can't do it, but like if you think, okay, I'm a bit feeling a bit lazy today, but I probably could do it, but I don't want to, and you still do it, and then you think, okay, no, I'm actually really proud of myself. Discipline really kicks in when motivation's not there. Building that discipline is really great because then you know, like, even on the days where you're not motivated, you're still like pushing forward. Okay, on to the next dilemma. I feel like the least impressive person in the room. I'm in a group in like work situations, social situations, and everyone seems more confident, successful, or put together. No one said anything directly, but I feel overlooked, like I don't quite measure up. First of all, I'm going to start with that thing that I always say, just don't compare yourself to anyone else. You're on your own journey. I'll never stop saying it because I think it's honestly one of the main lessons that we really need to learn and absorb. Also, in terms of being the least impressive person in the room, I think impressive, like honestly, you don't need to impress anyone, just be yourself. Authenticity is the most powerful thing. But I also want to say you'd rather be the least smart person in the room than the smartest person in the room. When you're the least smart person in the room, that means that you have so much knowledge that you can acquire. People can get quite complacent thinking, I'm the smartest person in the room, I've got the top position, I'm cool. And then I think what actually can happen is those people who are, you know, lower down, they can actually work their way up because they're learning so much information and absorbing. So never feel like any weaknesses that you have are limits because they're not. When I don't know something, I'm like, okay, that's great. I can learn and I can grow. I think we have a natural thing as humans where we're like, okay, I don't know something, panic. And then we start feeling so bad about ourselves. When really, that's just a sign that there's so much more that we can learn and so much more we can grow. And we have to start reframing it in that way, even though it can hurt our egos a little bit. Maybe I'm not as good at that thing as I thought I was. But okay, no problem. I'll grow and I can learn. Sometimes I'm like that. I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to be better at this. And I panic and I'm like, okay, I can actually get better. Like, that's a thing that can happen. And we have to allow space for that. I think we have to realize that we are a work in progress and we're always evolving. And where we're at now is not the destination. I also do think maybe you're feeling a little bit of like jealousy towards other people, which is, it's a normal human emotion, but it's something that we have to work through and overcome. I think you should actually look at jealousy and be like, okay, these qualities that I'm jealous of are just things that I actually aspire to be and want to be, not specifically in that person, but in general in my life. So if I feel like they're really confident, instead of thinking, oh my gosh, they're confident and turning it into a negative thing, be like, wow, that is incredible. That is such an attractive quality, clearly, because I'm jealous that I don't have it. And detach from that jealousy and actually think, okay, what is it I can do to become more confident? First of all, the first thing you're going to do is probably, again, stop comparing yourself to other people and realize that you are authentic and you are unique and that is your superpower. And then also being confident, okay, speaking kinder to myself, speaking goodness over myself. And also, you also get confidence from being more disciplined. Going back to the last question, when you're more disciplined in your habits, you then become more confident in yourself because you actually do what you said you were going to do. When you say you're going to do something, you don't do it, that's when you start to feel down about yourself and doubt yourself. When you deliver on the things that you say you're going to do, you start to build up that confidence. So then look at what those qualities that you want and just look at ways to going towards that. It's not something that you have to stress about and it can be gradual. I think it's really important to reframe those negative emotions. And when we feel that, realize that it's probably like a projection of something that we are feeling internally. And then look inward and see how we can like work through that and develop ourselves and grow ourselves. Remember, we are not a finished product. We are humans and we're evolving and growing. And every day we can be better. And some days we're probably gonna, mess up and not be as disciplined in everything. But there's always tomorrow to get up and keep going and be better. So never forget that. There's so much more life to live. So just live in that and move forward. Also, another thing to just get out of your head is that people aren't thinking that. These are things that we're thinking in our heads. And I'm sure a lot of people in that room also feel the same way. So they're just doubts that we create in our heads, which ultimately limit our potential. You have to learn to just acknowledge them and then let them pass and realize it is not the truth. It is just your own anxieties and fears and self doubts, but it's not the truth. How come we never seem to overthink ourselves into positivity? So many times we overthink ourselves into like negative things or like the worst case scenario. But actually, I think it would be a lot more productive if we overthought ourselves into positivity. But the fact that we don't really do that shows how poisonous overthinking can be and how it's just literally something that's trying to get in the way of our potential. When you're at least trying to better yourself, that means you are bettering yourself because even wanting to try is such a huge, beautiful thing to do. On to the next dilemma. I feel judged for trying to improve myself. I've started changing, working out, being more disciplined, dressing differently, doing better in my career. But friends make comments like, oh, who are you? Since when did you do that? Okay. I think a lot of the time, if you're not surrounded by the right people, I feel like people can be very comfortable when you guys are all the same and you do the same things and you have the same habits. But when you can break those habits or change, people don't like it. First of all, they might not like the unfamiliarity, but more often than not, I feel like they can feel very uncomfortable with you growing into something that's maybe not better, but different because you're developing maybe slightly better habits and improving yourself. And people don't like that because it makes them think about themselves and start to panic. But it is not a reflection of you. And maybe it's a thing where they're just not used to it and they're like, okay, this is weird. But then if they continue to support you and it was just like a brief moment, then fine. But if they're always saying weird comments towards you, I would say that sounds like a little bit of animosity, and it's really coming from their own insecurities or things they haven't dealt with, and then being uncomfortable with you choosing a different path for yourself. Because I think it's very unrealistic that, you know, if you all start as a friend group, for instance, from school, that you're all going to then always be in the same habits. And there's nothing wrong with improving yourself. In fact, all of the things that you've listed sound like really healthy, positive things. It's not like you're going down the wrong route. You sound like you're actually progressing on your path, which is a really great thing. So you want to be around people who support that and want to see you grow. People are willing to clap for you at the bottom, but sometimes there's very few there at the top. But sometimes people find it hard to watch other people succeed because there is a slight jealousy there. And they're like, oh, I don't feel great about myself. I didn't want better. But really, they should look at it and be like, oh, that's really inspiring. Like, maybe I should do that too. Or maybe not. Maybe you're a different kind of person and being okay with that. But I think there are times in lives where you can kind of outgrow certain situations or certain groups of people, not because you're any better than them. Obviously, we're all human, but just because you want to live a different type of lifestyle, and that is okay. And it's not easy, but you kind of have to get peace in that. But also that you're going to meet new people as well. And if you do lose some people because they are kind of hating on you and you feel like, oh, I don't really want to be surrounded by this animosity, don't worry, because new people are going to come. You're going to meet new people. When you're on your new adventures, you're going to meet people along the way who are very aligned with you and who get your mindset and push you to grow as well. Some people don't really want to see their friends grow, which is, it's not really a good energy to be around. There are going to be people who make digs at you and want to tear you down, or they don't want you to keep growing and being better because really they're scared that you're going to like move on from them or progress. Even though those feelings can be human, I think when somebody's constantly acting on it and letting those fears come out as negativity towards a person, that's when I'm like, no, I can't really have that in my life. It's just not healthy to be around, because then you might be like, oh, you know what? I want to be accepted. So I'm going to stop doing those habits and I'm going to revert back to my old ways. And listen, you do not want to do that. That is a wrap on the dilemmas this week. Thank you guys so much for listening. And I hope you guys are having a beautiful day. See you.